Hi, my name is Molly Sanders, and I've been horse crazy from birth. I've spent my life helping people from my years in the classroom to becoming a horsemanship instructor, and now as a facilitator of online learning experiences. My journey has been filled with twists and turns, some of them bringing moments of elation, and others humbling me to my core. One of the most powerful tools that has helped me along the way is talking to people I admire and finding out how they navigate the twists and turns of the journey. My goal of this podcast is to bring you conversations from a variety of horsewomen and men to help you on your journey. I'm grateful you're here. Welcome to podcast number 3. I'm really happy you're here, and I'm excited to share this conversation I recently had with David Lichman with you. David is an accomplished horseman, and in particular is known for his work with Liberty. But I've also come to know David as a fun-loving, curious, passionate human being who loves sharing his knowledge with others. You're in for a treat with this interview. We cover a wide range of topics, including how David stays motivated even in challenging times, one of the main mistakes that he sees people making in their Liberty practice, and how to prepare your horse for new experiences like clinics or shows, or in David's case, trips to Hollywood. So I hope you enjoy the interview, and thanks again for joining in. Hi, David.
Hi, Molly.
Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be number 3. The first 2 were awesome.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, you and I have spent quite a bit of time together this past year, most of it virtually via Zoom. And I just feel so lucky to have met you and learned more about you and learned, horsemanship with you as well. But I have a bunch of questions for you. So
right.
I'm excited that you've decided to join in.
Well, let's do it.
Cool. So one of them is thinking back, what was one of your earliest memories with horses?
Oh, boy. It's funny because I always had the stock answer of the Lone Ranger. Him galloping up that rock area and rearing up, hi-oh, Silver. This was in my brain. And I had the little outfits, when I was a kid and stuff. And so that's been my stock answer. But just recently I happened to see a promo for the show Fury. And the little Joey is calling Fury, and they show the wild stallion running with his herd and being, just totally huge. And then finally, when he's Fury, and this, comes up with his head down and soft, because Joey was the only one that could ride him.
Okay, no, is that from Walter Farley's series?
It could be. I don't know the answer to that.
But it was a show that you watched.
Fury, yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, and his dad was famous actor. You can look it up.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to look it up.
And then I started thinking about it also, and this relates a little bit to Dr. Jennifer Zelig. She always talks about Dr. Dolittle, and that was her dream, was to be able to talk with the animals. But I remember watching every episode of Mr. Ed.
Oh, yes.
And then recently, in the past several years, Rick Lamb did a podcast on the whole Mr. Ed experience and the training and the guy who did the voice and everything. And I watched that. Then I went back and watched all 107 episodes.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Now, so, at some point, the corniness of the storylines got a little tired. But I was watching for the training. I was remembering the stuff that happened as a kid, that I would get so excited about being able to talk to the horse, right? This is so cool. And the guy that played Wilbur, his name was Alan something. George Burns produced the show initially, and he chose him because if a horse was going to talk, this is the kind of guy he would pick to talk to.
Oh, that's great.
So it was that gentle, loving experience. And of course, the horse was smarter than the man always.
Right.
So that kind of, strikes home now as well.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, so I wanted to see, if there were things in there that I had missed as a kid. And I was really surprised because I don't know if you've seen the challenge video that we did. Maybe I can give you the little clip of where the sea lion balances a ball on its nose, and then I have 13 balancing a ball on his head. And
so,
there's
and this is the challenge video where you and Jennifer were saying,
yeah,
"Hey, can you do this? And what
yeah,
about this?" But she's doing it with the sea lions, and you're doing it
yes,
with your horses. Okay, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. I'll send you that little clip,
Okay.
and then so the horse obviously can't balance it, so I set up a little gimmick, and there was an episode of Mr. Ed where he wants to run away and join the circus, and he's doing the same thing, like
Oh, really?
subliminally in my brain from 65 years ago.
Right.
Was this image of him with the ball bounced on his head.
That's
uh,
great. So when you were a kid when you were watching Mr. Ed,
yeah, yeah.
and I mean, were you drawn to it then beyond
Oh
just
yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
okay,
Oh yeah, every week.
okay,
So back then we didn't have any recording, so you had 8
right,
o'clock on Thursday, whatever day it was,
right. And
you
do you
sat there.
remember like what about it drew you in?
Well, yeah, I mean, the horse could talk.
Right,
Unbelievable that you could, that you could communicate with the animal. And all I had was a cat.
right.
I wasn't doing too well communicating with her. And I did a little better with the neighbor's dog. They let me train the dog. That was fun.
Mhm.
But the horses, the inspiration for the horses seemed like it was there from the moment I first saw one on the screen.
Right.
And anytime there was one in person, I just came alive.
Yeah, that's great. So what kinds of experiences did you have in person?
Well, anytime there was a pony ride, or sit on the horse and get a picture taken, or later on, a place you would go for vacation that offered trail rides, I would
Yeah.
do that. And then when I was in junior high school, I found a barn near the junior high, and I would take my bike over there, and I would shovel poop all week
Yep.
to get a lesson on Saturday with Rex, who was the lesson horse.
That's awesome. It's so interesting how, like, I think, there's some people that are born into families that have horses and, they've just been around them from birth. But there's something, I don't know if anybody's studied it to look to see if there's some genetic code or something, but I
Yeah,
think there's something that's born into us because I didn't have horses as a kid either, but I was horse crazy from, as far back as I can remember. And I hear you saying these things, and it's like, that's the same thing as me. Like, we'd see horses along the side of the road, and I stop,
it's
I
like
gotta
a
get out
it's
and
like a
see.
magnet, really.
Yeah.
My great grandfather trained horses. He was a farmer,
Oh,
and
okay.
and he took remounts. I think they called them remounts. He would take the military horses and train them to pull plows for the farmers.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then yeah, so it skipped a couple of generations.
Right. And where was that? Where was he?
In Germany,
Oh,
in a
okay.
little tiny town called Nonnenweiher, which is it's like
Interesting.
where the nunnery is.
Okay.
There was a nunnery there. And
Very
I don't know
interesting.
how far you want to go down that road, but my grandmother, she was one of 13 kids, and my grandmother and her one sister got out, 1906 or something. They were out of Germany, but
Mhm.
my great aunt, one of the sisters, was there right up until the war, and the nuns in the convent hid her.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she wormed her way across the bridge to Strasbourg in France, and another convent hid her completely during the war.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I had no idea about that. That's fascinating. So you didn't have horses as a kid. So when did you start being able to, you mentioned junior high, you started taking lessons with Rex. When did it start to become more a part of your?
Well, I bugged my parents to let me go to a 2 week horse camp where they taught you know how to tie the cinch. I mean, they taught you a lot of stuff, but I was just right at the age of being interested in girls a little bit,
Mhm.
and there were girls there, of course. So
Right.
yeah, not less, more girls and less horsemanship. And then one summer, I got a job at a dude ranch kind of trail ride place up in New Hampshire. Those from New Hampshire, it's not there anymore. In Franconia Notch was called Terry's Tea and Ski.
Oh,
They
wow.
they they had horses there for trail riding. They had a driving range for golf, and in the winter it was skiing.
Wow, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, one of my jobs was picking up golf balls.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Too bad you couldn't do that horseback. I could totally see you figuring out some
Yeah,
way
no,
to
that
do
not
that
not then.
horseback.
No,
That's great.
there was a cart, fully protected cart,
Mhm.
because everybody, driving at the driving range just trying to hit the cart, of course.
Uh-huh. Right.
So it was all screened in, and you pick them up from the other side.
Oh, that is hilarious.
The horse would
So
need armor.
right, right. That's yeah. So you started picking up these odd jobs. You're still trying to, be around
Yeah,
horses as
just
much as
a
you
few weeks at a
can.
time.
Yeah.
And then I took some lessons at Andover Riding Academy, which was all English. And uh, they would send me over a little jump, and they gave me a green horse that would stop at the jump, and I would end up on the ground on the other side. And after about
Uh-huh.
4 or 5 sessions of this, I said, this is not for me. I'm
Right.
not having fun.
Uh-huh.
It's not working out. The horse doesn't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So we backed up on that. And then in college, I discovered that I could get phys ed credits for horseback riding. So I would drive up to Gloucester to a farm up there, and I took lessons up there. And that guy had me posting bareback, and I couldn't
My.
walk for a week.
Oh my goodness. What did you do to these
I
instructors?
don't know. This is in New England, it's very proper
Right.
riding,
Right.
but yeah, it didn't spoil me. But then there was a very long hiatus where I was on the road as a musician. And when I moved to California, and I got married, and just right before we got married, we kind of looked at each other and said, geez, I've always wanted to have a horse. She goes, yeah, me too. So we got horses right around the time we got married, 1983, and that was the start of it. We bought a house with the 2 acres, and
And
been
you've
here
been
since
there.
there.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's really cool. So then when did you decide that you wanted to do it professionally?
Well, I also got a degree in software engineering, and I was doing a contract for IBM. We were doing digitizing all of the vital records for the state of California.
Mhm.
They're all in warehouses in West Sacramento. The paper is crumbling. Birth, death, and marriage certificates, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So they were going to scan them and digitize them. And there was this massive project to go through. And I would be sitting in my cubicle, and I would be typing a little bit of code, and then I would be staring at the pictures of horses on the wall. And I just realized I need to be out there.
That's really
So,
cool.
so I stopped. That was around the time that I went to Tennessee and won a World Grand Championship, '92. And then when I got home from the championship, I started training horses for other people, because I was pretty good with walking horses and
Mhm.
gaited horses. And then I realized in one, very short amount of time, that training horses was not the way to go. I actually got 10 horses in training,
Wow.
and the first day I got 3 done. The second day I got 3 done, and then there were 4 that hadn't been touched, and it was just too much, because I was taking a lot of time with each one.
Right. Right.
So that's when I started teaching, and I never looked back.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so then, I think a lot of people who know you, when they think of David Lichman, they think of Liberty.
Mhm.
When did that start, and what draws you to it? Like, what about it is like, oh, this is I love this.
Well, I can tell you how it got inside of me, but I didn't really think about it, was watching circus, basically. And the horses all doing beautiful choreographed routines, and they're horses. I mean, they run wild. They they kick each other. They go wherever they want. And here they were doing nicely disciplined, beautiful, synchronized behaviors with as many as 10 or 12 more even. So that image always was nice for me. And then there was another image of the Spanish riding school when they came to Boston. They flew the horses over, and in Boston Garden, where they have the hockey games, they hung a fake chandelier, and they set up a little dressage court, and they did their performances there, and that just blew me away. All the airs above the ground and everything. And I saved the program,
Mm-hmm.
and in that program there was a little thing that said Anreiter, which is assistant rider,
Mm-hmm.
Arthur Cotas.
Oh,
And
wow.
fast forward years later, Pat Pirelli is visiting the Spanish riding school, and Arthur Cotas is the director.
Right.
And so I got an introduction, and I went there and I showed him I still
Oh,
had the
that's
program
cool.
from Boston Gardens.
That's
And
cool.
then at that time I had a Lipizzan on as well. So
Oh, wow.
kind of
Yeah.
came full circle.
Yeah, very much so.
But
Um,
the actual liberty with horses really started with Ray Hunt, that he could get a horse to connect with him in the round pen and follow him around. It's like, oh, this is amazing.
mhm.
And then Pat, after I met Pat, after that, Pat took it to another place. Ray wanted them to connect so that he could do other stuff, but Pat made a whole study of liberty, and that's
Right.
that just fueled me to do as much as I could. And then of course came full circle again, because I met Katja Schumann, who was a fifth generation circus horse trainer, and we've been friends and colleagues, and she's been my mentor ever since.
That's really great. And one of the things that I really admire about you is that you're continually learning, and you're continually like listening to different people, your students as well, asking them questions. How did that work? And just, I guess it was yesterday, you mentioned to me that you'd listened to the podcast with Charlie Snell, which
Mm-hmm.
happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when you mentioned Ray Hunt, Charlie's name popped into my head, because he's also somebody that learned with Ray. And you mentioned that there were a couple things that kind of hit you that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, you'll have to refresh what I wrote what I said to you, but I remember one was, he said that the cowboy had a job
Right.
for the horse, and this reflects really strongly back to the circus, because Katja Schumann, there was basically, it's one of those, nothing she can't do with a horse, in a way that doesn't offend the horse. This is what we call a horse person, a horsewoman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was doing all these amazing things, but she still felt like there was something in the relationship that was missing. So that's why she started studying Pirelli. And but when you would go there, and she'd have 6 horses, and you're trying to get these 6 horses into this ring, and there's wires and tubes and hoses and stuff all in the back, and then there's this tiny little area backstage where there might be an elephant and 5 clowns in there, and it's somebody hanging from the so you got all these horses in there, but like a couple of the horses, like they were spooking at the stuff on the ground, and I'd say, oh my goodness, you could fix this. She said, yeah, but they got a cross.
Right. You get it
I
done.
have much bigger problems to solve than that. They'll make it across, and then it won't kill them, and they won't be flustered by it. And what I need them to do is, when they get, with the lights are on and the music are going, I need them to just do what I'm asking in there. And out here, yeah, it'd be nice. I don't have the time
Mm-hmm.
to get each horse with that much foundation. So it was kind of that thing where I have a job to do.
Right.
So the cowboys would say, whatever it takes, at the spurs on, I got a job to do. She, of course, was not, she was much more sensitive to the horses maybe than the cowboys, but she had a job to do. And once she started working with Pirelli, it became this challenge for her to say, how much softness and quietness and relationship can I have with the horse and still have a show that has pizzazz?
Right.
Because if it's nice to see people petting horses and them wandering around and following them, but the general public coming to watch the circus, they want to see some prancing and some, some fancy stuff. So
Mhm.
she was always trying to say, how much more can I get the much stronger can I get the relationship and still, have a job that they can do.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. And it is interesting how it relates. Because one of the things that Charlie was talking about is how, when you're out doing a job, if you have somebody that's really dedicated to their horsemanship, they're going to be kind of worthless. Like, and it's kind of similar to what you're talking about there. Like the people like me that are just doing some nice soft things, and we can get through the scary area, but it's not getting the job done of entertaining and
Right. Or for the cowboy, it's not catching, keeping up with the cows.
right,
It's,
exactly.
but,
But how
but
can you blend them?
exactly.
Right,
That's the hard part.
right.
The other thing Charlie said was something about putting a lot of miles.
Yes,
No,
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
kind of the same thing. So even though the Cowboys, maybe they, get it done, get the job done, we focus on the job, all those miles, it kind of got, the horses got well behaved. They got to become good citizens. They realized that fighting was not going to, buy them anything. They
Right.
could conserve their energy because, they knew they were going to go 30 miles that day or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So the miles were helpful. And I remember in visiting with Hunza Blaha,
Mm-hmm.
he used to tell me, he says, you go in the woods 10 days with your horse. By day 3, you will have a different horse. And he was talking about point the horse into the woods and don't see anybody or anything, and then you come out after 10 days.
Right,
you
right.
know?
And is he talking about, like, is he riding in the woods, or he's just
I think
living there with them in the
I
woods?
think it would be, yeah, traveling,
Okay.
but maybe some riding, some liberty, some
Uh-huh.
some online,
Right,
it could be.
right,
But his thing was just 100% of the time be there with the horse, and you're covering a lot of miles.
right, right.
Uh,
Yeah. Which is something that we don't, and most horse owners don't tend to do either
well,
one, right? Like spend an hour a day, if you're lucky, but to do that where you're spending that much time, that would be an eye opener.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he didn't have a car or a bicycle, so his horse was his transportation. So when he wanted to go from the place he was working to his parents' house, he would ride 25 miles through the woods to try to
Right.
get there. He told me
Yeah.
once he got lost and he ended up at the same place.
Oh my
And
God.
we made a big circle, and by the time he got to his parents' house, he was dragging poor Gaston.
Uh-huh.
There's lots
Yeah.
of fun Gaston stories. You should probably interview him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That
I
would.
think when he was a stallion and they didn't want him at the place where he was working, he was doing therapy for double handicaps, like either mental and physical,
Mhm,
or there was these were really challenging students.
mhm.
And he was a stallion, and then it was not working out for them. So they had to take him. And his parents lived in an old church, and there was a courtyard in the front of the church, and the mother was raising chickens on the other side of the courtyard. So when she would go with the grain for the chickens, Gaston would come in and steal the grain from her.
Oh,
And
geez.
she became afraid to go out of the house because Gaston would be standing in the morning on the doorstep.
Uh-huh.
She couldn't even get out the door.
Oh my
So she
gosh.
went up to the second floor and took an apple and threw it across the courtyard. He went and got the apple, and she
Ran
run
out to
downstairs and run across to feed the chickens.
Oh, that is hilarious. That's smart. That's
Yeah.
good strategizing. That's funny. So, one other thing that you mentioned with the podcast with Charlie is about the singing.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
almost forgot. So you and Charlie talked about singing to kind of, like, we've had this thing about music soothes the savage beast, right? It's like to get the horse calm or to get yourself calm. Like when you're frustrated, just start singing. And I don't remember the whole story, but that was the gist of the story. And for years, I've been doing with students riding to music and synchronizing the hoof beats to the music, and then changing the tempos of the music to see how much you can elasticize those tempos in your horse. So in Pirelli, we used to have the thing that was 3 speeds within a gate. And you could do 3 tempos within a gait, slow trot, medium trot, fast trot, not talking about, extended or collected trot, just tempo.
Mm-hmm.
And people are, trying to match the tempos, and it's really fun, and they like the music. And all of a sudden the horses, start to relax, and and the most common comment for this is, I was having so much fun, I forgot about all the technical stuff, you
Ah,
know?
yes.
And so Marianne Kennedy, my friend, the Grammy nominated songwriter, she wrote a song for that. It's called Rhythm of the Ride.
Oh, cool. That's really cool.
Hoof beats are the perfect drum. So I started to ask her, I said, why do you think this is happening? She said, because music takes you out of your thinking space and into your heart space, into your feeling space. And this is what the horses love. They like it when you are feeling together with them, and not thinking about, oh, more shoulder, more hind leg, more, all this thinking stuff.
Right.
They really connect with you much better when you let go of some of that. Of course, we have to understand those things, but the music, riding to music has been one of the most popular things that I do with students, and do with myself also.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So you've had a ton of different experiences. You've traveled the world, you've studied with a bunch of different people, and also, taught so many different people. I'm curious to hear about, like, I know somewhere along the line there, you ran into some challenges, either as a learner yourself or as an instructor. Do you have a story that comes to mind when you think of a challenging learning situation or teaching situation?
Well, you primed me with this question, and immediately what came to mind was uh, when I was getting my degree in software engineering, there was a particular course called hardware for software engineers. And there's lots of jokes about, like, how many software engineers does it take to change a light bulb?
Mm-hmm.
0, it's a hardware problem. So it's like, this bashing of heads about, who's in control of what's happening on the computer. But we had to take this particularly difficult course with John Clevenger, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And we were programming the hardware at the hardware level. So it's not just writing software to do stuff. We were trying to program the actual hardware chips. And there's a chip called an interrupt controller, which it gets a signal that says, oops, I need access to this, whatever it is. And everything stops and shuts down, and it takes over. And when there's a problem, if you try to debug it, it's like the quantum physics theory. When you try to look at it, it changes. Mm-hmm. Because it's so timing dependent that if you say, okay, when we get to this point, write a line to the disk so that I know when it happened, you've changed the timing, and the thing either totally breaks, or you don't see the problem anymore. Mm-hmm. So very frustrating to do these things. You'd have to record every electronic signal that would come out and then study those signals. So massive projects just to program this one little interrupt controller chip.
Wow.
And so there were 5 of us. I think my friend Payson Hall, Marianne Murawski, Chris Jorlin, there were a couple more students that we got together, and we were in that hardware lab all night. And the thing that the reason I went through this whole thing about this story, mm-hmm. is because probably, there's probably a couple of guys in that group that could have done it themselves. Mm-hmm. But the act of supporting each other through this learning experience and bouncing ideas off each other and working in a team, I think that's how we can most effectively overcome these learning challenges.
That's like so interesting. Yeah, that just told me a lot about why you are the way you are. Because that's one thing that stands out to me about you as I've gotten to know you, is you reach out to other people. You're constantly like, well, this person can help me with this or this person. And then you're sharing it with me too. Like, hey, you need to reach out to this person or this person.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, do you think, did it start there? Was it like that?
Yeah,
Or
I
you were,
didn't recognize it at the time, but when you asked me the question now, 50 years later,
yeah,
it wasn't
right.
that, it's not that long ago. I
Uh-huh.
got the degree in 82, so that was 40 40
Right.
years later. Um, I started to think about it, that this being able to bounce ideas off of people, and when I have students come here to stay and live, this is the most productive time for anything we're doing, riding Liberty, because we're bouncing ideas. It's just this collaborative uh, uh, feeling that you're not alone. Like I'm alone today. I just, I know there's something I probably want to teach Pepino to do, but just go out there by myself, it's challenging.
Yeah.
So, it sort of ties around to this virtual clinic idea,
Mhm.
because through the common videos and the comments there, and the Facebook group where people are sharing ideas and sharing videos and commenting, this, fosters this, and you can have it over a longer period of time, right in your own home. You don't have to go anywhere to do it.
Right. Right.
So I think it's this idea that, trying to work in a vacuum. There are some people, somebody else is around. It's just it's an annoyance, stop,
Mhm.
you're getting in my way. But, for me, I'll take any help I can get. And
Right.
I cherish the idea of having somebody, feed me with some ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. And I think, like you were saying, like some people aren't going to learn that way. Some people need to be by themselves, but knowing which one you are, and then if you're someone that really wants to collaborate, keep searching, keep looking. And like you mentioned, like the project, the reason that you and I got to know each other was because of this virtual clinic experiment that we put together. That was a ton of fun. And just to plug it, because I can. It's coming up again in October, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is a really cool part of that we've kind of discovered as a really cool part of the experience of being in a virtual event with a group of people is you
Yeah.
get uh, to collaborate if you want to. Like you don't have to. Some people don't, but you can. And there's so many more ideas that can be shared, and you don't have to go anywhere. You're at home,
Right.
and then you go play with your horse and come share your
And
thoughts.
I think around here we have the Savvy Sisters, and we have little groups of people. With COVID, it got a lot of those things got shut down. But I think the most successful people don't try to do it in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, the concept of I didn't, or not discovered here, can't be worth anything. You have to throw that out the window. You have to be willing to say, hey, what that person's doing is really cool. I wonder if I could do it. And then if I can, I could call them up and say, hey, you want to help me do that? And
Yes.
then they'll come over and they'll say, oh, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And then, you start, feeding ideas to each other. And
Yeah.
the sum is always greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's really cool. So can you think of, you've worked with so many people and now you're working with people virtually. Is there a story that stands out lately of like something that was successful, a success story with a horse or a human that,
Well, the timing is perfect for that question, because I had just twice I've had huge successes with my little miniature horse Pepino. We went to Hollywood twice,
oh yeah.
and this was something I'd been dreaming about. Jones, how can I get these horses into the movies or television or something? Because I think they would do okay, but you never really know until you're tested.
Right.
So we got to go down there, and as you know, I'm a big believer in preparing for context shifts. So we did so much preparation. On the first go around, we only had 6 days to prepare. And so there was a lot of preparation over 6 days, really crammed in. And if you have the right horse, that's a help. And my little guy is super bold, and so not too much bothered him, and he was spot on for the journey. And Dr. Jennifer Zelig, she's done a lot of TV and movies, and she coached me through those 6 days a lot. She said things like, they promise you things, but don't believe them. It's going to be different. Whatever they promise you, you're not going to have that rehearsal time. You're not going to have access. Whatever they said, it's just not going to be true. So you got to be prepared. And the night before, I was sitting with Pepino, and I just decided I would sit with him for a couple of hours. I left Jay at the hotel, sitting there with him, and I was just fooling around with a couple of things, but not really asking him too much. And I called Jennifer, and I said, if everything feels pretty good, looks, it's looking good. And she goes, don't say that. If you say that to yourself, you're going to relax your focus on what he's telling you about the situation. You're going to go, oh, he can handle this. It's going great. I don't have to worry about it. You should be worrying about it. Mm-hmm. If not anxiety worry, you should be pay attention. Don't let your guard down, because that's what's going to get you. When you get in the moment, you're not going to notice that there was a guy over there, sipping a soda, that's going to, get him or something. So keep your focus and attention up, and never tell me that it's going to go great, because that tells me that you aren't thinking about how to prepare for the actual event. And that was a huge help to me.
It's so interesting, because I think there is a really fine balance between, like you said, it's not the kind of worry of anxiety, because, I think a lot of us imagine going and doing what you're talking about, taking our horses to a new environment, Hollywood, you're going to be on camera, all those things. And what can trip us up is being too worried about it. And when you get too worried, like the anxiety kind of worry, you can no longer be present and observe what's going on. But the flip side of that, I'd never thought of that the flip side of that could be going, oh, everything's great.
And you lose your mindfulness of what you don't lose it because you're self-absorbed and worried and scared. You lose it because you're overconfident. Just don't be overconfident either. And we did so much preparation, of course, years of preparation to get to the place where I had a horse, could do it. And then this horse was the right horse, and this was the right time. So that I was fairly confident that, that he knew what to do, and he was going to do something, something good would happen, but I had not really thought about this becoming overconfident, and that's what she was guarding me against. And it was very helpful. And then, on the other side of that is, I'm sure you've heard it before, the whole industry is hurry up and wait. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, Pirelli natural horsemanship tour stops that will have taught you this lesson. Right. Because, get ready, you're going on. Oh, hold on. So the hurry up and wait piece is probably the hardest piece, to keep the animal fresh, keep the animal interested, know when to just leave them alone. It's very challenging to have, several hours when you to just do nothing. And then all of a sudden you're on. Right. Yeah. So and for days, the first shoot we did was an hour and a half shoot. Mm-hmm. But for 2 days before, they wouldn't tell us where we were going to be, didn't know where I had to drive to or what time, or, didn't know anything. They kind of hold it back from you. And, but the second one was, I was there 5 days. And, oh my God, those days were very, very long. Mm-hmm. And then I was, okay, come on, let's go. You're on. Wait a minute. I haven't brushed him, I'm not going to brush him 4 hours in advance and have him be dirty again. Right.
Yeah, that would be really challenging.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you first started sharing this story, you mentioned context shifts.
Yeah.
So for people that aren't familiar with that term, what is that, and how can knowing about it help them?
Well, in Pirelli, we talk about having confidence in 5 areas: self-confidence,
confident in the environment.
Well, I'm trying to find the H.
Oh, the herd.
Confidence in the herd. So self-confidence, confidence in the herd, the environment, in you as a leader, and as I learn, confidence as a learner. So we have all of these areas that we try to make sure the horse help build the horse's confidence. But the environment piece is something that you don't always get to control. And so you really want to give the horse tons and tons of experience with different environments, because a tiny shift in environment can make a huge difference to a horse. Little things like, oh, I decided to try a new girth right before the show. Oh my God, the horse is bucking,
Right.
some little thing that you wouldn't have thought of. So context shifts for prey animals are huge, and we needed to go out of our way to find things that would maybe simulate where we're going to be if we can't actually go there. Because this is why I was so interested in saying, I need to get into the studio. Can you let me in for 10 minutes where we can just walk around? You can sniff the cameras, and of course they promised yes, and then they didn't deliver. So,
Right. Right.
so what we did, excuse me, what we did was, like when I auditioned for America's Got Talent, I knew he was going to have to go on to the Dolby Theater stage in Hollywood. We didn't get that far, but we almost did. And I was working with the local theater group at the high school because they had a stage. And I said, "Can we go in on Sunday? And and I'll if there's any damage, I'll take care of it, but we'll put a rug down. And I want the horse to get the feeling of going onto a stage and people making noise and stuff." And so I couldn't do that this time, but I thought somebody has a warehouse or something, or a factory or something. I kept calling everyone, and I called my friend Anita, and I said, "I'm just trying to find someplace." She said, "Well, why don't you go down to Tractor Supply?" And I called a couple of Tractor Supplies, and they said, "No, no, it's too much of a risk, all this stuff." And she said, "No, the one down here in Galt. The guy's name is Eric. We go in there with our miniature horses at Christmas, and we do stuff." And he said, "Sure, come on down." So we showed up with a trailer with a basketball hoop and a chair and a little miniature horse in sneakers, and he's going around in there dunking the basketball, sitting in the chair. And we learned something. We learned that the cement floor was slippery. So I had to get some special mats so that he wouldn't slip when he was trying to stand up on his hind legs and stuff. Especially with the tennis shoes, they're actually more slippery than his hooves.
Oh, interesting.
And so this gave me a lot of confidence that he could go in. There were shoppers walking around, people taking pictures. There was announcements over the PA, and the most difficult thing was when we got near the aisle of horse feed.
Oh, jeez.
Because at home, if I have a bag of horse feed on a wheelbarrow, he'll pull it off the wheelbarrow and knock the wheelbarrow over to try to, get into it.
Right.
So this was like heaven to him. It's, oh my God, there's miles and miles of
it's
horse
Willy
feed
Wonka's factory.
So that was probably the toughest part. Yeah. And I didn't think I would have that in Hollywood. I didn't think that would be a problem.
Right. So preparing for, the unexpected, taking your horse to different environments, don't just assume that, we can go to the show and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah. The most common thing we hear is, "Oh, he's never like this at home." Right? Of course, he's never like this at home. Right. He's very comfortable. He's relaxed. Nothing worries him.
Right.
But as soon as you get to the arena, and you practiced at that arena 10 times already, now on the day of the show, they put banners up. Right. Put advertising banners up, and it's windy and they're flapping. Oh my God, the whole show for you can get ruined. Yeah. I remember we had a driving horse that we were competing with. And we got to the show and realized this driving horse, was perfectly fine in her harness, pulling the cart with her, her blinkers. Mm-hmm. And she had never seen another driving horse.
Oh, wow.
And the place was full of them, and then some of them weren't behaving, and they're, and rearing up, and they're making a lot of noise, and the carts are all rattling. This was, I couldn't take her in. It was
and
just
she'd never seen another one because of the blinkers.
No, because we don't have any around here. I didn't think that she needed to be desensitized to other. I was so much worried about me sitting behind her that I didn't think about that there would be other carts.
I gotcha. So you were preparing a horse for driving, and you hadn't thought, I got it. Oh, wow. Yeah. Isn't that
fun? I bet you that's not uncommon. People say, "Oh, I got him driving great." And you take him to the show, and there's all these other carts and horses and stuff. And
right. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So another thing that I was wondering about with you is there a common mistake or misunderstanding that you have seen with students that you could share with us? to help us out?
Yeah, well, there's two, and it's the same one that Charlie talked about, is people getting frustrated. And they say, how do you get so much patience? And I don't know. I'm just kind of patient guy. So
Hmm.
I very rarely explode. I mean, it takes a lot to push me to that spot.
Hmm.
So I don't have the instructions to teach that, but I can tell you that when you are frustrated, nothing good happens.
Right.
You need to just chill. So this, I took a mindfulness course with Dr. Selig. You can take it on the internet as well.
Oh,
She
that's
offers it.
cool.
I'm in it.
Hmm. Cool.
I was taking the course, so
Uh-huh.
you'll when you watch the replay of the course, you'll see me. And this idea of taking a little pause and just clearing your mind, and she puts it in terms of meditation.
Hmm.
She's a secular Buddhist, so she's talked about this, that this clearing of the mind is prior to interacting with the animals. This
Hmm.
is going to help prevent you from bringing all of this tension and anxiety, which is just blocking all of the communication.
Hmm.
And um, then, so she had us do 10 minutes of meditation before we even started the class. And I usually just would turn off my camera or read a book or something. Yeah. I don't have this problem. But also the idea that in the moment when things are not going well, the singing,
Hmm.
she says, just, shut everything off, sit, quiet your mind, take a fresh start at it. And that can sometimes be enough to
Right.
kick it in.
Yeah.
So, what I didn't have patience for was the meditating.
Uh-huh. Right.
Sounds silly, right?
No, not at all. I think a lot of people would relate to that. Like
So
sitting
what
still for
what
10
happened
minutes.
was I got these pigeons that I had tamed. They were in the nests, and I hand tamed them. Well, they didn't take them from the mothers, but they got used to getting food from me, and they would fly to me, and I'd have a little cup of seed, and then I had two of them, and I had one in each hand, and they became kind of regular in the morning that they would show up. They'd fly on me, and they where's my seeds, and I had to stop all of my thinking and doing, oh, I got to get this horse moved to there, and I got to get this one's grain mixed up, and this one needs bandaging, and all that mental stuff. I just, I had to sit for 10 minutes with these birds because it took them that long to eat the seeds out of the cup. And then their little rhythm of them pecking at the cups, it's just all of a sudden I realized I'm meditating here. I'm, this is my meditation time. And so even when I started to get frustrated with the birds, I would go, no, this is the best part of the day, is sitting with these two birds, pecking away at the little seed cups. And so,
That is
so I
really
worked
great.
my way around. I backed into it. I think that I discovered that there is something to this. But
Right.
so that's one place with people getting frustrated and getting angry. The second place, in terms of specifics in liberty, stop chasing your horses. This is the one message. If there's one common mistake, it's when they and it comes from a good place. It comes from the catching game, which is of
Hmm.
course is this is catching game is for a horse that can't be caught. So if he's running away from you, you make some kind of commotion.
Hmm.
Create some energy, and people have taken that. Spank them on the butt, doing all this stuff. This is but for horses that are connecting with you and they decide to leave, don't chase them, don't make them feel uncomfortable, but because they left, if you spank them as they're leaving, next time they're going to leave faster so they don't get spanked.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
that's the biggest mistake in liberty people make, is they chase their horses, or they create negative energy when they're in the sphere of being close to you. That's a
Hmm.
sacred place, right?
Hmm.
You try not to, do something nasty, but it's not really nasty, but try not to give them um, anything aversive in that space. That's the space you want them to be seeking.
Right.
And you can poison that if you just keep, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, you should be looking at me. Whack. No, if you do, like I have a game of two eyes where I say, hey, you quit looking at me, and I might put a little pressure on their hindquarters. I
Mhm.
will make up for it with tons of cookies at that moment, because
Mhm.
I say, oh, I'm sorry in here, and we usually have to create any commotion in here. Oh my, what were you thinking of looking away? Because when you look here, there's so much good stuff happening here, scratches, cookies,
Right.
all this good stuff. But we recognize that putting something in there that when they're close to us that is not so friendly, we need to have a big balance in the relationship bank account. So that's a little tiny withdrawal, and then we stuff more in
Mhm.
immediately. So
Right.
pretty soon they don't take offense at it. It's just a reminder of, oops, sorry, what was I thinking?
Right.
Over there, really? No.
So if somebody's listening to this and they hear that one of the biggest mistakes is, people chase their horse if they leave, what would be the alternative? What would you suggest instead?
Yes, this I got from Amy Brimhall. Think of the relationship at Liberty as a dance. So if the horse leaves, don't think that the dance is over. It's just that now the horse is leading the dance. So if you can kind of match and mirror and go along with the horse during these moments, you'll eventually be able to tease the leadership back and get back to the dance that you wanted to do. So I like to think of it in those terms. But the try not to let them, do laps and just running. That just they stop thinking when then they're just escaping. So if they start to just run, you just go run over to the side of the arena and stand in front of them where they're coming, and they're either
Mhm.
going to come to you or they're going to turn and go the other way. And you just, you have the advantage that you can just, however fast they are, you can find a place you can get to before they do.
Right.
Cut across the arena. Hello, here I am again, until they realize they're not going to run away from you. But that endless running, at some point, if the horse, like I said, like for the catching game, if the horse has never been caught, okay, well, he's going to run some laps until he starts thinking about, maybe that guy's a better idea than this.
Right.
That's a different strategy
Right.
for a different reason. But if you're
Right.
playing at Liberty and you're trying to get high level Liberty, I say don't chase them.
Right. And I remember the first time I heard that idea from you, of that idea of if they leave, if they disconnect from you, it doesn't mean you have to disconnect from them. Because oftentimes, like if my horse would take off, I'd be like, oh, geez, and
Yeah.
I'd actually stop the conversation too. But when you shared that with me, it really changed things. And then if my horse would leave, I would just carry on. And, even if I was standing in the same place, trying to match their energy, and even just thinking about that we're still connected. I'm still connected with you. And
Yeah.
it made a big difference in me, which then, the horse could feel. And
Yeah, they get used to. I'm still here.
right.
Running does not break this connection. It's a
Yeah.
different connection, but it doesn't break it.
Right.
It doesn't work so well in some circumstances at home. However, like if my wife says, "I've had enough, I'm out of here," and I go, "No, no, honey, I need
I'm
to,"
still here.
no, just shut up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. No,
Right.
no, no, we're
Right.
still communicating. No,
Right.
no, we are not. And
Right.
if you say one more word,
Right.
right?
Well, and I think in a way, I mean, that's a good analogy, but also in a way, what you're talking about is you're talking about not continuing the conversation in the same way, like with your
Right,
horse.
changing the conversation.
Yeah. Like
My
if they
my
say
wife
I
tells
gotta
me just no conversation.
right, exactly. But if they say I've got to get out of here, you're kind of just going, yeah, go. It's okay. You can go. I'm gonna be here with you when you come back.
Right, but also they're not leaving. They're not leaving out of frustration. Usually,
Right.
they're leaving because they feel like there is a competing um, uh, motivator.
Hmm.
There's grass over there. There's other horses over there. We're working on little tiny things. I like to run. I feel like moving. So
Right.
they're working on a competing motivator, and that's what we have to do, is find out how to change the motivation so that our whatever motivation we're bringing to the table is superior to the one that they think they want. So that
Yeah.
it's just a question of trying to find the way to have them think more of you than the grass over there.
Right.
Basically, so it's not like they're leaving in a huff.
Right.
If they are, it is time to stop the communication and go sit in the corner and wait for them to wander back to you.
And that's good. That's a good distinction, because I have had many situations where mine have left in a huff because I
Yeah,
put on too much pressure or
yeah,
they're confused, So in those situations, just going, oh, my mistake, and I need to repair the
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think yes, definitely. Those are the two strategies I would say.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that's
but the
awesome.
mistake people make is when the horse is just seeking something, they think there's something, a better deal for them somewhere, and they're wandering over to do that. The mistake is to try to chase them. That
Right.
that's the time not to chase them.
Is just going to convince them that, yeah, there definitely is a better deal over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good. So, how can people learn with you? Because things have changed a little bit. You're not traveling as much, if at all, right now.
Right.
If people are, curious and learning more about what you're talking about, how can they do that?
Well, I love traveling. I've done it all, 25 years I've been traveling around. I love foreign cultures. I love doing things, but I got a little bit spoiled staying home actually, because I got to know my wife, I got to know my kids, I got to know my animals. My horses are doing a lot more. So, spoiled staying home. And the idea that we couldn't teach in person has given birth to this idea of virtual learning, which you have taken and just let it blossom. And for me, um, that's the best way to learn, because not only what I know how to teach, now students have the benefit of you know how to help them learn it. Right, because I'm just teaching the same stuff, but you have somehow managed to condition the pieces that I have and put them in a form that students can absorb more easily, and we're getting amazing results.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So there's the virtual clinic coming up, that starts October 9th, which I'll include a link in the
Yes,
show notes.
yes. And
But
then
then
I have a
you're,
Facebook group.
yeah.
It's called Liberty Challenges and Support with David Lichman, and we usually have a month or two long challenge with some little prizes, just to see, just give yourself a little goal
And it's
of what.
really active. Like, it's fun to get in there, super positive and supportive, and people
Yeah,
are
yeah,
doing amazing things in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
then you also are doing video coaching,
yes, if you
right?
send me a video, like private video coaching, send me a
Mhm.
video. We'll have a conversation. We'll have an email, or I'll do a Zoom session where I can show you look, see where you're standing. You need to stand a little bit further back, and then your horse will just turn around and be with you. That kind of stuff. And then also we were doing the monthly group video coaching workshops, where I would take a couple of students' videos, coach them, play the video, and have them on screen live talking about the coaching that they're getting on this, with several dozen people watching, which is like similar to a group of people watching some private lessons. It's kind of nice.
Right.
And we're going to pick that up again in November with special guest Karen Rolfe.
Oh, cool.
I forgot to
Oh,
tell you
that's
about that.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I think you did. You mentioned it somewhere to me, but that's great. So that'll be in
Yeah.
November.
So I don't know what it's going to be, but we're definitely going to talk about how Liberty has improved her dressage, and
Very
how
cool.
you can use Liberty to create the relationship that makes the dressage better. Yeah.
That's great. And people can find out about all those things at davidlichman.com.
Yes, exactly.
Keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And I feel lucky to know you and to get a chance to share you with the world a little bit more, these days. And
Well,
yeah,
you're getting more and more busy, but you have a permanent invite to come on back down, because we had a lot of fun while you were here.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and that'll be information on that project that we worked on will be coming out soon too. So yeah,
Is it top secret?
it's top secret.
Oh.
Yeah. So stay tuned. That wraps up podcast number 3. So I hope you found some valuable information for your horsemanship journey and possibly for your life outside of horses. I'd like to leave you with a thought that I just heard. I'm participating in an all day training today, and someone in the training, we were talking about goals and things that we're going to try to do for ourselves. And one of the things that someone shared that really hit me was she shared that one of the things that she wants to do is to be able to celebrate the learning that happens from her failures as much as she celebrates the learning that happens from her successes. I loved that. I hope you do too. And I thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.